What is happening, y'all? The post game here from inside Carolina. I am not Tommy Ashley. I'm Joey Powell. Tar Heels win in an absolutely gross basketball game, 68-65. We are brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. Rob Harrington is here with me, and Rob, you and I were texting during the game. We knew that this show might be ugly if they lost. I don't know that this show could have been as ugly as that basketball game was.
You're right. I think our vocabulary will probably be a little bit cleaned up here versus our text exchanges. But yeah, I don't know how it could have been much worse. Other than, of course, they could have lost. But it's hard to. At least I have a hard time coming up with many positive takeaways. I don't know how anyone could watch that and say, "Oh yeah, these guys figured out some things." I don't think they figured out anything. I don't like to dump on the team because I don't think that's useful. Try to think of it in a way that how they might fix it, but I don't even know how they fix it. The first thing that has to happen is they have to find a sense of self-belief, because right now they're playing like a team that expects bad things to happen. And we'll get into individuals, but you can see it with certain players more than others. But team wide, I think they just don't have any belief that something good will go down for them. Maybe getting a win will help it a little bit, but they have a long way to go.
Yeah, I saw a team today that looked like they were absolutely just wanted to be anywhere else but in the Smith Center playing basketball. They continue to be disconnected. I know that's a word I've heard you use before too. They look absolutely disconnected on defense. But I just saw them in the first half. There was nothing that they did that looked like they wanted to be playing basketball today together. They're struggling to catch basic passes. Guys were stepping out of bounds like unforcedly. Just a whole feeling of unfocused basketball. And I don't know how that happens after what we've seen the last three games. Rob, what do you attribute this lack of focus to? Because that's something Hubert Davis talks about all the time. How does it keep showing up?
I think the team is smart and they know they're having a bad year. And I think they know that they don't have any answers. The coaches haven't figured it out. They haven't figured it out. They don't think that they're going to go on a big run. And so they don't. And I think the microcosm for it, I'm not blaming Elliot Cadeau across the board because there are all kinds of issues. But I think that he represents the problem the most because you see him in his game that he doesn't necessarily believe that he's going to make a good play. Like a lot of his passes, some of these one-handed passes are sort of they're flails more than they are aggressive plays. It was good to hit a big shot at the end of the game. That was a positive, I thought. At least he saw one go down. It was a huge shot. But I think his example is illustrative. Same thing with RJ Davis. He's not shooting with the confidence that certainly he did last year. To me, having covered AAU for a long time, there's this thing that happens sometimes when a player changes teams, like a lateral move, not moving up or down in level, just make a lateral change. And you see the player who's been good before, and immediately on the new team, you can tell that he doesn't feel like he's in the right place. Like it just doesn't fit. And that's what RJ Davis looks like to me this year. Like he changed AAU teams and he doesn't feel comfortable on his new team. He doesn't think he belongs there, which is weird, I know, because he's a fifth-year player. But it's almost like the rug got pulled out from under him, and he doesn't know what his place is on the team, other than he knows he has to shoot because too many of the other guys are passing up shots. So, to go to your question, what is causing all this? I think it's just an all-around fire of things they have to figure out, and I don't know where you start from that, other than just maybe getting a structure in place offensively and defensively that you think you can build on, because I think the one they started the season with, it wasn't the correct one.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is that this team doesn't seem to do anything convincingly right now. If you think about their first couple of games, they were at least running fairly well. Even against Kansas, they were running fairly well. They looked as if they know where they wanted to be, even in the half court sometime. Since they started this three-game losing streak and then on into today as they beat Georgia Tech 68-65, I don't know what this team does well. Tommy has said in the past when he's hosting the show that find something and do that one thing well. I don't know that I'm seeing this team do anything that they look like they're doing convincingly right? Whether it's getting to the glass, whether it's even playing screens, they don't look like they're convinced on how to play a screen. You've seen guys kind of sagging halfway behind a screen and going under one. It just there's nothing that they do that looks as if, hey, I know I'm doing this. Like I know what I'm doing right now. Just everything looks so shaky. Is that a reps thing? Is that a confidence thing, like you mentioned a second ago, or is that just one of those deals where when they get out there, they're not really sure how to get themselves out of the quicksand?
Yeah, I do think it's a confidence thing, but it's not just that. I mean, I have to give credit to the opponents too, because now they've been scouted. I think if this team played Kansas again, it would be a much different outcome. It's hard to imagine these guys taking Kansas to the wire and really having them on the ropes like they did when they actually played. I think now everyone sort of knows the deal on Carolina. You don't really have to worry about most of them as 3-point shooters. You harass RJ Davis. The front court guys are no threat at all on the roll, even though the Heels tried to involve them today. It didn't necessarily go well. It did a couple of times in the second half, but by and large, you're still getting guys who aren't catching it cleanly, or they aren't looking for the ball, or it's a bad pass. Those sets just aren't working, and so I think I'm having a hard time isolating one or two things. I do think that the opponents have figured them out some though, and so it's probably going to get worse until it gets better. They're an easy scout. If you have a team that doesn't shoot threes, and you have a team that has zero post game, a team that gets no offensive rebounds, they're pretty easy to guard. And so it's one thing for us to criticize how things might go better, but they're so empty at a lot of different levels. Hard to coach your way out of that, and yet they still have to find a way.
I think one of the things that would scare a lot of folks, as if this last 4-game stretch hasn't done enough, I saw a North Carolina team today whose opponent was not good, right? I think we can both agree that is not a good Georgia Tech team. They were without 2 of their starters. They shot 31% from the game, and still it took basically some big shots at the end for North Carolina and Georgia Tech really going cold down the stretch for the Tar Heels to win at home on a day that just did not look good. Tar Heels, I'm going to give some stats for folks that are watching. We appreciate the 200 and some odd folks that are joining us live here on the postgame. Tar Heels had 18 turnovers, absolutely unacceptable, and most of them, if you watch in the first half, were just lazy. It was just lack of focus. North Carolina missed 0 of their last 4 made 0 of their last 4 field goals. Georgia Tech was just barely better than that, but Tar Heels shot 81% from the line, 5 of 24 from 3. For a team that was largely considered to be a 3-point shooting and transition team coming into the season, this continued failure at hitting from deep is going to erase that perception of shooters very, very quickly. They did out-rebound Georgia Tech 48-37, which something to be said for that. I think the guards got better and more involved in the second half of rebounding the ball. They had 13 offensive rebounds to Georgia Tech's 11, and they did have 19 points off the bench. The biggest thing that scares me, we know this North Carolina team has deficiencies defensively in the post. I saw North Carolina in 2 halves of basketball from 4 different players, 5 if you count James Brown. North Carolina got 9 points in a full game of basketball from their 5 forwards. I don't know how that happens. I feel like, Rob, you or I could probably steal a basket in there somehow, whether it's getting position and getting fouled and getting a free throw attempt. I don't know. But only getting 9 points from a combination of those 5 guys, is it a combination that guys aren't looking for their shots? Is it that it going back to the confidence thing? Because I don't know how you explain a guy as athletic as Jalen Withers being above the rim for a perfectly thrown alley-oop and missing it.
Yeah, I think part of this, now here's where I will criticize the coaching a little bit, because I don't think that, while I think everyone would acknowledge it's not an ideal Carolina front court in terms of having an inside attack, the fact that they don't go there at all. I mean, old school post ups, a big guy, because sometimes they do have pretty good position, and sometimes the big guys are calling for the ball and they're just not getting it. I think they should make a point, dump the ball inside occasionally, just to give people something to think about, because the defense is going all in on the guards. So you're getting Washington one-on-one. We know he has a nice turnaround jump shot. Lubin is an accomplished college scorer at the P4 level. So he's actually not bad down there. Throw it into him occasionally. Withers has a little bit of a post game. Granted, it's a little more touch and go for him. But at least with the other two guys, an occasional entry pass when the court is spread out, you even use the initial screen as a decoy, maybe just to get those guys free and get a couple of short range attempts. I think would at least give them a little bit of balance, because right now they're getting played like it's like a football team. I know football's in everyone's mind right now. It's like a football team that has no quarterback who can throw, so that everyone just puts all their guys, they stack the box, and you run it anyway, and it doesn't ever work. And that's kind of how Carolina's offense looks, where they have basically they do nothing but penetrate the guards. They're going to shoot threes. They're going to throw it inside. The three-point shooting will come around or it won't. There's only so much they can do about that. But at least try to go inside a little bit. I think that's where they could impart some balance. And I don't think that the big guys are incompetent post scorers. Not ideal, but I don't think they're incompetent. I think they're leaving some meat on the bone there.
I think today they were struggling to catch the ball, and part of that's on your guards. Part of that's on guards, making passes where bigs can catch it. Even though it looks good, making sure it's a catchable pass is the most important thing, not how good the pass looks. It's great to draw guys to you if you're a guard, but if you're going to dump it, you've got to dump it where a guy can catch and go up. I see a team right now, and I like where you're going, so I want to kind of dig into this a little bit. I see a team right now that if it's not transition, they have no plan on offense. I saw a lot of guys camping in the corners today for 10 plus seconds. That possession where Elliot Cadeau got the three that put them up 5 towards the end of the game, that was a terrible possession until he hit that basket, right? Like if he misses that basket, that might be one of the worst possessions of the game, just because of the lack of, I'm going back to the intentionality earlier. Like I said earlier, there was zero intent. You didn't know what anybody wanted to do. It was literally R.J. Davis dribbling between the elbows, back and forth, a couple of handoffs back and forth to Cadeau, and then they get it to Cadeau at the end of at the end of the shot clock, and he hits a big three. I don't understand what the purpose is there. I didn't even see any guys stepping up to the elbows to set screens. What are they trying to accomplish on that play? Because if it's an ISO for R.J. Davis, he didn't seem to know it was an ISO.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly said, and I've been saying that for 2 weeks, that as with 2023, which was my comment throughout the season, it's not even clear what they're trying to accomplish on some of these possessions. Like what shot are you trying to get? What would you like to do? I don't even know. A lot of the issues in 2023 were Love and Davis not having a good dynamic, and then you had people like Nance and Leaky just standing flat-footed on the perimeter, and we're seeing that again. We're back to 2023 with this guys just standing flat-footed to space the court, and it kind of works on the one hand, but on the other hand, usually the corner player isn't actually looking to shoot. Trimble will shoot occasionally. He should shoot a lot more, in my opinion, and be ready to shoot. But I don't think it's helping the team when the defense isn't worried about the big guys. They're sort of paying attention to the guards in the corners and the forward. But I don't think it's helping anything to have them stand there. A certain team, it would be fine, but not this team. I think this team, as in 2023, needs to get those guys moving. And they did a little bit of relocation today. I did see a few new wrinkles, but it wasn't consistent. Hopefully over the next month, they'll put more of that stuff in, get more off-ball action, get people moving around, see if you can get Trimble more, because Davis and Cadeau are good ball handlers, and see if you can get Trimble with some catches coming off a curl screen and angling down, so he can start to make plays other than just shooting an occasional corner three. I think he's an unused resource too. And then that way it's not all on R.J. Davis's shoulders, and Cadeau feels like he has a little bit more room to operate creatively, because he's playing like someone who feels he's stifled. Like the offense isn't working for him, and he's sort of playing within the confines of something that he's not comfortable doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I mean, to your point, even if you just have your wings in the corner, just swap positions with each other. Just swap on the baseline. Make the other team's post players at least account for some movement somewhere. Who knows what it might cause? They may run in. The defense may run into each other. You might end up sneaking a little back door there. You've got guys that are acrobatic enough to be able to stop and catch a little alley oop or a push shot if they want it. But when they're just standing in the corner, and I understand that's a lot of a lot of what the NBA works, but it's different because these aren't NBA players, right? Like it's not the same talent you see in the NBA. It's not the same size. I saw a hint of James Brown in the first half. Why would Hubert Davis not go to him a little bit more in the second when you were dealing with foul trouble? Washington was down with a bum ankle for a little bit. Withers just wasn't quite catching on to what was happening on either end. Why not throw James Brown in there for some energy? If nothing else, he's at least 6'10".
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm always hesitant to get too much into who plays
Personnel,
how
I got
much.
you.
I will do more with combos. The reason is I'm not in practice, so maybe they're just seeing something in practice that doesn't give them any comfort. Having said that, I would like to see a little bit more of him. At least with a freshman, you're having someone who doesn't have any concept of 2024. James Brown has no clue about how last year's dynamic was. He's not worried about whether the team has declined at all. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a freshman, and you can benefit from that, just like Ian Jackson and Drake Powell. Let those guys do a little bit more and give you a little bit of youthful energy. But again, I don't know what they're seeing in practice with James Brown. I do think that he's a little bit better than I thought he would be. I had modest expectations for him,
Same.
but at least he's a big guy. And any big guy they have, I'd like to see them just give a shot. See if you can teach someone to set a good ball screen, someone to be a decent defensive rebound or get an occasional offensive rebound. Any kind of signs of life at center, because obviously I mentioned the combos we all talk about, but the ones they've been using, and they're trying. I mean, give Hubert credit; he's trying real hard to find a combination that will work. I don't think that he has accepted any prescription on what the best lineup is at this point. I think one of the issues, if we're talking about where the season has gone wrong, is that the preseason was a failure. I mean, there's no other way to say it. The points of emphasis in the summer and the fall, this run thing, it hasn't worked out. And I was a little worried about it at the time because I don't think that they play in a way that's conducive to running like the Roy Williams teams, certainly in transition defense. Last year they weren't good at it either. And so now they go faster, but I think I'd rather see them focus on some more half court execution. They're good in full court anyway, but I think that's an area where they could. I think now that the preseason didn't work out the way they wanted it to, new combinations, new structure, take a little bit more time. You see how Kadomek will make a good play sometimes when he just slows down a little bit. You don't have to whip a great pass, probe the defense more. I think that's how the team can improve.
And I don't mean that James Brown is like the solution, but when you're getting nothing, literally, they had no front court points in the first half. You've got to try something. I appreciate that. And yes, folks in the chat, almost 300 of you, we're aware Rob is having a little bit of audio trouble. We're trying to get that fixed. Just bear with us. It's one of those things that we're trying to bring you a live show. We will try to fix the technical stuff on the back end. Just bear with us. But certainly, we're grateful that everybody who is here is here. Rob, I've seen some things, and I've shared this in the Coast to Coast with Sherelle and Sean, which we'll drop another one tomorrow night on Sunday if you're listening to us. Something I've seen with those guys, I've seen these guys. Not only are they helping off, which I'd still, Sherelle is adamant that you never help. I feel as if you have to help with a purpose. I still see this team half helping. We saw a situation. I'm going to give you one if I can remember the timing right. It was about the under four, or would have been around under four. RJ gets switched off on by Ndongo, and Jalen Washington comes over and kind of just plays behind RJ. Like they don't actually switch. He doesn't actually come over and double team. He just kind of stands behind him a little bit, like they're waiting in line to get putting at the K&W, and then Ndongo gets a dunk out of it. And I've seen that happen from most of the bigs at some point this year where they're just halfway helping. They're halfway in between one place or another. They're not on a man. They're not kind of helping off. They're not on the ball. I don't know what's happening. Is that fixable, or is that guys just not understanding what's going on right now? How can they approach that in the future so that it's not happening when January gets here?
They seem to me like they're caught between strategies. I don't think they know yet how they want to defend pick and roll. And this is another area it would have been better to figure this out in the summer to have, because what they came out with, I mean, the defense has been bad all year. The offense started out great and has sort of been figured out. So that one I think is a little bit more understandable. You wouldn't have thought that RJ Davis would struggle like this or Cadeau would struggle like this. So offense, I can sort of see where they're coming from, and everyone has been surprised by it. Some of that's on the players, not the coach. Defensively, though, I still don't think they have an identity, and this isn't the first year where that has happened. Last year, they figured it out pretty quickly, and they became a very sound defensive team, not an elite one, but a pretty good one. And
They were
actually, the defense,
reliable, right?
right?
Like they were at
And
least
it was better than the
reliable.
offense.
Yeah.
This year, I think they are caught between schemes, and it doesn't look like they're not aggressive in what they're doing because they're thinking about it. Like, where am I supposed to go? I'm sure that they're not executing these strategies correctly. But to answer your question, yes, it's fixable. I don't think it needs to be complicated. I thought I did see a little bit of zone today, actually, at least a possession or two of zone, which I liked. I normally I don't even like a zone that much, but give it a shot. See if you can find something that works. But over the course of the month, they'll have to settle on something and see if they can find a way to get some improvement. I mean, the defense is rock bottom. Today it didn't show up because Georgia Tech is a bad team, a bad and shorthanded team. So you would think that,
Yes,
okay, well,
accurate.
they got better, but I don't think they got better. I think Georgia Tech, within the limits of their own talent and injury status, got really good shots too. They just missed them. But when the next time they play a good offensive team, I think today they would have gotten lit up again. So hopefully they're going to figure that out, settle on something that works, settle on combinations that work. I mean, boy, they have a lot of work to do as coaches. I don't envy the coaching staff, even though, yes, it's their responsibility. Ultimately, like we said at the top, it's not any one thing. It's like they have to put the puzzle pieces together. But right now, you don't even have the pieces from the same puzzle, so they have to get that organized first and then try to put them in place. So the question is whether, yes, it's fixable. Is it fixable in a time frame that will allow this team to make the NCAA tournament? I think that's an open question.
So I think a couple of things there is yeah that it does feel like it's something that's fixable. I think it's a good point. I worry that this team um, may lose even more of their identity for what little one they have right now before they get that back. But on the good side of things, they did win the game today. I think that's one of the things where had this been another loss, then you're wondering if this team's circling the drain before Christmas. So at least they won the game. I think that's huge. Starting in conference as bad as the ACC is going to be, if they would have lost to a bad Georgia Tech team at home who was down two starters, then really, we would be setting every single alarm in the Circuit City shelves on right now. As it sits, we only have, half of the alarms turned on. Some positives. Ian Jackson continues to impress. I think he struggles like most freshmen do defensively, but he's shown his ability to attack the basket at the right times. I think he's still figuring out that, yeah, some guys are a little more athletic than what he saw on the previous level and ability to get up and block some of his shots, but he's not afraid. And I think when North Carolina gets in this place where their offense is stagnant, I think they need a guy that's unafraid like that. That's one of the things that makes R.J. Davis and Seth Trimble such weapons is that they're not scared. How do you feel like Ian is going to continue to evolve to help this team? Because he was certainly a huge factor today.
I think he should be in the mix minutes wise with the other guards. I don't think that initially I thought, okay, they'll bring him along. He would get 5 or 6 fewer minutes. Now I think that his minutes should be equal to anyone else's because you said it, and he's a willing trigger. And off the dribble, it's really just Davis and Jackson. Even Trimble is not a comfortable jump shooter on the move. He's a spot up shooter, and he's a really good one. But you need some players who can create sometimes, especially the way the offense is set up, and especially given the limitations elsewhere. They're going to need the guards to create and not just creating inside, going 1-on-2 against the teeth of the defense, against trying to hit an acrobatic layup over a big guy. You need some jump shooters, and that can be Ian Jackson shooting it really well. I think what you said is right. He's adjusting to the rim protection. He's still getting to the rim, but some of these left-handed finishes, especially where he sort of glides in, that's a shot that works in high school. It does not work in college. Even against the lower level opponents, they're going to have someone come over and erase that. So in his case, I think playing off 2 feet a little bit more, getting a little more physical. I'd like to see him contribute more as a rebounder because I think he's athletic enough to do it. Someone needs to crash in from the baseline and get an occasional rebound. I mean, he did have an attempted tip dunk. It was a little too much flair, but I appreciated that. I think there is potential for him to contribute that way as well. And he's learning to play off the ball. I do think defensively he's showing progress. So I think yeah, you're right. From a positive point of view, Ian Jackson certainly is a bright spot. I think that he'll continue to take on a bigger role, especially if RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau continue to struggle. Hopefully that they will turn around and he will continue to improve, and then you'll start to look like pretty good backcourt battery that we were all expecting.
Number I want to give you for Ian Jackson, 4 for 4 from the free throw line. And those were all down the stretch, and those are big shots when you're talking about a final score that was a 3-point difference. That absolutely means something, and I hope that it will give that young man some confidence, even more than he probably had in fitting in with this team as the season progresses, because having a guy that can sink free throws when the game's on the line absolutely can, make a huge difference in what your entire team feels in pressure situations. It's not just one guy. You don't need R.J. Davis to be the guy that gets fouled all the time. Seth Trimble hit some free throws. I mean, R.J. missed a front end of a 1-and-1 that could have been absolutely huge had things not played out the way they did. Rob, we've talked about this game for about 25 minutes. Is there anything that you feel like we left out there? I mean, again, we hit all the high points. Struggled on defense a little bit. I still say if Georgia Tech doesn't shoot as poorly as they did, and if you want to give some credit to North Carolina, great. I think Georgia Tech's just not a good basketball team. I think that's the reason they shot as poorly as they did. UNC did get a couple of stops on defense. They did play some good, full shot clock segments, but it seems like the same bullets in you and Tommy have been talking about. It's no post rim protection. It's struggling on offense, and it's being really careless with the basketball. Is there anything that could be done over the course of the next few games and few days, considering they're going to be on in exams this next week? Is there anything that you can look for to say, all right, they're at least fixing that?
I do think that I saw changes in this game from the other games in terms a little bit more off-ball movement, a little more defensive variety. So it looks like they're putting some new stuff in. And I will say this from the positive perspective too, because they won this game, they bought themselves some time. So no, beating Georgia Tech at home doesn't get you in the tournament, but at least it doesn't knock you away from it. They bought themselves some time. They're 1-0. Okay, still not playing well, but you live to fight another day. And if they just have to scratch and claw to get some wins this month, and then I think we'll know what they have in January as sort of a reset. And I'm looking for the team to improve substantially. I still think that they can. I was wrong about them being a potential top 15 team. I said it was a top 15 floor. That was obviously wrong. I still think they can be a ranked caliber team. Maybe in the best case, the type of team that would be a 4 or 5 seed in the tournament. Resume wise, that may not be very realistic at this point, but maybe they could play at that level if things go well. So I haven't thrown in the towel on them at all. They didn't damage their resume even further today. No one's ultimately going to care. They barely won the game at the end of the year. It's an early December game that they won. So you buy yourself some time. You continue to iterate on these new wrinkles that they started to show. See if you can find some combos that work, and maybe it will turn around. I'm not trying to. We don't blow smoke here, and certainly you could tell the story as, oh, this plane is crashing to the ground, and there's only so much they can do about it. And then the accusations and recriminations start at the end of the year. Exactly whose fault is it? I don't think we're there yet. But I'm looking for during the game. Yes, I blame anyone and everyone. But after the game, I think we can say, okay, their resume isn't very good right now. They still have some opportunities, even in the non-conference, to notch some good wins. So I'm looking forward to that. And if the team will be positive and build up this game with a few changes, then maybe the narrative around the season turns around. It's a lot of conditionals, but it's not implausible they could do it. Put it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, we had some folks in the chat a while ago saying that we're being too negative about this squad. So certainly, folks can't accuse us of being smoke blowers and also being poo pooers or whatever nom de jour you have out there for us. Rob, I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you making time for us. I want to make sure everybody out there knows we're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. Hey, Johnny T-Shirt, today, I think, until the end of the business day, they're doing their 12 days of Christmas, which means they're putting something amazing on sale every day. Hit up the website right now, johnnytshirt.com. I think they are doing 25% off all hats. If you're a hat guy like me, or if maybe you need something to put on your head for whatever reason, check out Johnny T-Shirt. The site's down there at the bottom, scrolling to the bottom of the screen. If you're a premium subscriber, you get an extra 10% off your order, so use that. And then also shout out to Matt at Congruity. Make sure you see Matt as well. Email him, Matt at congruityhr.com for your free assessment for your small or medium-sized business. They'll help you out. And I'm going to go ahead and say this now. For those of you who care about such things, UNC football coaching. I can give you the latest news there. I'm probably gonna annoy Buck Sanders or Ben Sherman by saying this, but I can report that Rob Harrington not a candidate for the UNC head coaching job in football.
Who told you
Uh,
that?
I got sources, buddy. I got sources. Relax.
I have an important question for you.
Yeah.
Does Johnny T-shirt sell headsets, or is it just hats? You said
Uh,
hats. Do they have a special on headsets? This one, go ahead and play taps. This one's going away.
all right.
So
Well,
I'm in the market. We
we'll,
need to.
we'll see if we can find one. I've always said if Johnny T-shirt doesn't have it, you don't need it. So maybe they do have headsets. We will look into it. But I
Better
hope
find out.
everybody will stay locked to Inside Carolina. A lot of stuff coming up. Again, we're following the football head coaching situation. As soon as there is concrete evidence to break some news, we will break the news for you. So make sure you subscribe to Inside Carolina, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to all the podcasts. You'll get all that stuff. You won't miss anything. Make sure also that you're ready for the Coast to Coast podcast tomorrow night. I am filling in for Tommy Ashley today on the post game with Rob, but I'll be back doing our regular show with Sean and Sherelle tomorrow to talk a little bit more basketball, look a little bit more of a wide angle lens than just this game. But I think a lot of the things that we talked about with Rob tonight will probably come up as well. And we will have all of that stuff for you. We appreciate everybody who's joining us, who's listening. If you're listening to this at a later date and you weren't with us live, we're glad you're here. We appreciate you subscribing to the show and listening at your convenience. Either way, we are grateful for all of IC subscribers, especially this time of year. Tar Heels win today. Very gross, very ugly. Game had no alibi. A 68-65 in the Smith Center. This has been the post game for Rob Harrington. I'm Joey Powell. Shout out to Johnny T-shirt and Congruity for sponsoring. We will catch you next time on the next episode of an Inside Carolina podcast. This has been the post game. We are out.